What's going on, family? I know a lot of y'all are like, where you been, Nacho? We haven't seen you. I wanted to put that off until next year. Um, some circumstances came up that I could no longer just not speak on. I've let certain things in the media slide, but I think that there are some things that need to be acknowledged. And based on the title of this show, I'm sure that you guys can kind of figure out what's on my mind. So I'm going to give a little intro, a couple of intro visuals, and then we're going to dive in and talk about it because there's a lot on my mind, y'all. So right now, I'm going to just let you check out a part of my video, a collaboration for with my husband for our Scription Volume 2 album, and then we're going to come back and talk about the title of this show. See you in a second.
This wish a nigga was central. Make sure it's holy in your temple. You a vegetable when I'm in the room, and I'm vegetarian when I eat my food. Palms together when I pray on you, cause the chef about to use her favorite tool. Chop, cut, slice, dice. Shit, I ain't even got a knife. Seem like when I spell it in a rhyme, I cut a motherfucker up and serve him over rice.
All right, y'all. I hope you can hear me clear. I checked. I'm not muted. So I know y'all, first thing y'all probably saying is, Nacho, this is not Sunday. What are you doing? Well, we're going to call this a Nacho Snack. Nacho Snack Saturday, where I just talk about one specific topic and dedicate some commentary to it. And this week, yeah, Fat Joe, I'm confused, Fat Joe. Fat Joe says some really interesting things on Math Hoffa's show, and he was specific about foundational Black Americans and the fact that he thought it was a organization. He thought that the FBAs were like the NOI or the NAACP. The fact that he clearly didn't do the research necessary to find out who he was talking about before he decided to say some very hurtful things about FBAs is really disappointing. First of all, as I understand FBAs, it means Foundational Black Americans. The term and the topic has been popularized by Tariq Nasheed. And prior to this discussion of FBAs, Tariq Nasheed was already established for having discussions about very difficult topics with respect to the Black/Ancient American community, foundational Black community. I think that when Fat Joe made the comment that he was asked who was he talking about as far as his he described who he was talking about as radical Black racist. And when he said, he was asked, who are you talking about? And he was like, we might give him too much clout. FBAs, foundational Black authority, whoever these broke niggas is. To not have done the research to find out who you were talking about is very disappointing, Fat Joe. Really disappointing. The fact that you didn't understand the A in FBA meant American, and it wasn't the name of an organization, so to speak. You have to realize that the way you talked about people you think are FBAs suggests that you wouldn't understand if somebody said those Japanese, I don't know, whoever these broke ends are. These Asians, whoever these broke ends are. These Jamaicans, whoever these broke ends are. These Arabs, whoever these broke ends are. You talked about a classification, a racial identification of people. And because you misunderstood it as an organization, I think that you don't realize how offensive you were. I'll give you that grace. It bothered me that you continue to use the N-word. And I know a lot of people are like, it's different for Fat Joe because he grew up around a lot of African-American people in the projects he claims. But I think people would feel differently if they take into account, the history of why that word is offensive with the hard ER or said by the wrong person or whatever. I think if he can take that into account, understand the racial divide with that word, how white people or Caucasians use that word to talk down upon people who are classified as Black, Ancient American, African American, etc. That considering Fat Joe is classified as white, that he of all people should be more sensitive about how he talks to or about Black people specifically. When it was brought to his attention that people had a problem with him saying the N-word, he doubled down and said he's not going to stop saying it because he feels that entitled to use it. And with that, I think what he is confusing in that dynamic is the difference between the cookout and the family reunion. Fat Joe got invited to the cookout and he got comfortable and thought that meant he could talk like he was a part of the family reunion. Black people know what I'm talking about. So when you go to the cookout, you've been invited by a family who is within a community who said that when you come to our house and we have our barbecue and our cookout, you're welcome to come. Now, can you go across the street and go to their cookout? I can't speak for that house. But for this house, you could come to the cookout. The difference is when you go to the family reunion, you bloodline. You might have conversations within your bloodline that you might not necessarily take to a casual cookout. You might call each other by a name or names that you don't really utilize around people who are not family. So to me, Fat Joe got very comfortable and decided that he was going to talk to people he thought were African American like he was a part of the family, and he wasn't. He was allowed to participate in a part of our creative dynamic and mistook that for the whole culture. Don't miss that. Black people, Ancient Americans, foundational Black Americans, however you identify, people who were already here, there is a culture of those people that greatly existed prior to hip hop. And I think Fat Joe believes that Black people's culture is hip hop. I don't think that he realizes it was something way before that. Regardless of what you hear in your history classes, there was definitely something way before rap when it comes to foundational Black Americans, ancient Americans, copper Americans, African Americans, even though that we a lot of us are not African. But I think Fat Joe missed that piece of education. There was a interview where Fat Joe was explaining how one of his grandmothers was in a projects that was 85% African American. Then he brought up that his other grandmother was or is in a projects that is 99.9% African American. And if I have this wrong, forgive me. It was his grandmother's and where they resided by way of the projects. He was using this as his stamp of approval to behave like he behaves and talks like he talks. His participation in the projects. He also made the statement that Blacks and Latinos or Puerto Ricans created hip hop 50-50. In New York, they had a 50% contribution to it. And the math wasn't mathing for me. The math said to me that if you were in a projects that was 85 to 99% African American, where were enough Puerto Ricans to suggest a 50-50 contribution to the lyricism of hip hop and rap? Your own math suggests that there wasn't enough. We were 85 to 99% of what surrounded you. So how was that contribution half when they didn't make up half of the dynamic, half of your own experience? The math wasn't mathing. Additionally, Fat Joe said that what did he say? He said that he was no, it wasn't him, his brother. That's what, forgive me, y'all. I'm trying to remember. But Fat Joe said that Grandmaster Flash, who was credited with being a founding father of rap, Fat Joe said his brother carried Grandmaster Flash's records. And that for him was evidence of Puerto Rican pioneership in hip hop's rap. And I struggle to think of any other artists, influences who were famous or referred to as contributors or pioneers who carried the records of legends. Not that didn't try to become legends themselves. I think Biz Markie might have carried records, but we don't know him for being a record carrier. We know him for being Biz Markie, the lyricist. You got what you know what I mean. So I struggled to put together why he wanted so much weight to be given to his brother carry records. That's saying my great grandfather used to drive Henry Ford around as a chauffeur. So the greatness that became the production of Henry Ford, my grandfather, my great 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 relative, was a pioneer of that. Am I alone? Does anybody understand why that sounds so crazy coming from Fat Joe? Um, his use of the N word. Let me say I have a nickname. You know, there's a nickname that my mom calls me. There's a nickname that my husband calls me. And when I hear that name coming from them, I know it means something specific to me. I know that anybody else in the world could be yelling that name and I wouldn't turn my head, or it wouldn't even get my attention unless I heard it from the voices of the people who we understand what that nickname means. Considering Fat Joe can mark white on his paperwork, and considering he's been asked to not be so insensitive to use this word, it makes me wonder, how would he feel if someone utilized something that he found difficult as a way to refer to him? Like, how would he feel if somebody told him, "Hey, you wanna do stuff that we want to criticize and consider bad behavior? We gonna call you out your name and call you the wet, or the we gonna say that about you when we refer to you and people who look like you. We know it might have a bad connotation to you, but I'm not gonna stop saying it because that's how I refer to all of y'all. Is that fair? So to double down and feel like because your grandparents grew up in the projects and that was the percentage of your experience that you feel gives you validation to speak like that, how would you feel if we decided the same thing and decided to refer to people who look like you or share your lineage, disparaging, hurtful words that refer to you negatively? Because my mama can call me Lil Pookie, but Fat Joe can't go around calling everybody who look like me Lil Pookie. You can't do it. And then when you need the clout, you'll go ahead and you'll tell everybody how you got this connection to the projects. And for those of you who are not familiar, the projects is not it's not Millionaire's Row. It is a housing project, governmentally funded and provided, and people who fit a certain income bracket, which is usually on the lower end, this is where they get assistance to live and be independent. So when Fat Joe needed to clout chase the culture, he definitely made it known that his grandmother lived in the projects. Grandmothers lived in the projects. But as soon as foundational Black Americans speak up on their race and culture, here comes Fat Joe ready to call them what? Broke niggas. So those broke niggas is cool when you need the clout and the credit to be accepted into the ancient American / copper American / Black American / foundational American / African. When you need to get a pass to come in there, you're gonna talk about broke people like they're cool, But as soon as they're like, hey, you're speaking on our culture and we'd like to make sure you get it correct. Here's the correction. Is, I don't know, whoever these broke niggas is. Wow. So you utilize it for convenience. Projects and broke stuff is cool when it's convenient for you. And then when it's time for you to get corrected, because you can't just run off with our culture in your mouth and you getting it wrong, now we broke. Like, come on, Joe. It leads me to ask, when it's you seemingly sound so against foundational Black Americans. When you talk about the fact that you believe foundational Black Americans are what you call radical Black racist, I'm floored by this term, a radical Black racist, because for a group of Americans to stand up to say, hey, you've been getting us wrong for a very long time. And what we would like to do is make sure that if someone like you who has the platform that you have, if someone like you is going to have this conversation and talk about this, then you need to make sure you're spreading the right information, because you can't be corrected. You call these people radical. It's shameful that it's considered radical for people to want to get your culture correct when no one else is considered radical for doing that. No one in America is considered radical for making sure the correct narrative is spread about their culture until it comes to Black people, specifically people who fall under a Black umbrella, ancient Americans, copper color Americans, foundational Black Americans. It's only radical because it's us. And to call us radical Black racist, anytime you want to have your culture correct and make sure that people quote you correctly, discuss your narrative correctly, anytime someone is trying to do that, only someone who's intellectually and emotionally immature will find a problem with correction. So when he's being corrected, and we have to be considered racist, because according to Fat Joe, they don't like anything that isn't Black American. And yes, I said it like that because he said it like that. Fat Joe said it like it just gave him a sinus infection to say the word Black and American together. Shit like that. So if he thinks that us trying to make clarifications, it makes us radical and disgustingly would make us racist, then I suggest that he shouldn't work so hard to imitate such a culture. Because foundational Black Americans, ancient Americans, people who identify as we were here before rap and hip hop, and we had a culture of principalities we followed that shaped who we were from then to now. If we can't give you a correct picture because what you want to say don't match the truth and you get upset with that, you the racist. You the radical. You want to insist on your lie and make people who want to say, hey, we noticed you had this misinformation. Let me correct you. You want to label us the radical racist. So I just think it's very interesting that Joe didn't see himself in that description. He didn't see how much he fit that narrative because he was so uninterested in the truth that he decided to come up with a term that he was going to call these people that was more applicable to himself than the people he was talking about. It's disappointing, Fat Joe. I think considering Fat Joe trying to claim such a contribution to hip hop that it was 50-50 between them and Black people. I look back at people like Rick Rubin and the Beastie Boys, who to me would predate any significant Puerto Rican influence in rap lyrically or by way of rap, period. I could even see where the white people would be able to claim 20-25% contribution, maybe. But to just jump over that and feel that you, because your brother carried Grandmaster Flash's crates, they didn't come out with a fight for your right to party. They didn't get with Russell Simmons and make a significant contribution to Def Jam. They carry Grandmaster Flash's crates, and somehow we're supposed to give that more significance than people who actually made a significant mark who are not Black. It's interesting. It also makes me ask the question, Fat Joe, why you don't look like, why your style don't suggest Puerto Rican? If I would think if it was 50% that the you would have stuck to your lineage contribution. Instead, you rocking the full beard. You got all your hair cut off because we seen that baby picture, sir. We seen you in grade school, sir. You know what I'm talking about, Fat Joe. And every time there's a physical expression with Black men in hip hop, Fat Joe, you seem to follow that trend. You cut all your hair off, you get a goatee when they got a goatee. Now you're rocking the full beard with the bald head, your whole dress, the way you talk, the jewelry you wear, all comes from Black people, but it's a 50-50 contribution. Why you didn't stick with your contribution you claiming? Your big homies that was contributing to hip hop before your second generation 90s self came into the game didn't tell you that? Oh, you don't have them big homies? Oh, they wasn't rapping? But you came in, what, 90 something? So rap had been around for 20 years. So you're a second generation and you didn't have no rap big homies that would vouch for this 50% you trying to claim. Your own people haven't come forward to say that they feel disrespected by not getting that type of recognition that you're claiming. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand, Fat Joe. People have tried to bring it to you nicely. They tried to say, hey, this bothers us. You just have a way of going about things where, again, you got too comfortable at the cookout. You thought you was at the family reunion and you wasn't. You was at the cookout and you don't understand that family can cut you off and be like, you know what? We don't want you at the cookout. We thought you knew how to behave. You don't. You don't know how to act. You think you the family. You think you go and lay across Big Mama's bed and watch TV with her. You're not family. you are a guest who forgot that they were a guest. And when we opened our arms and allowed some additional expressions into hip hop, you gave us a reason to be like, this is why we need gatekeepers. Everybody can't go because everybody don't know how to act. Why didn't hip hop blow up in Puerto Rico? When did rappers start? Right? Where is the rap history of Puerto Rico? Why wouldn't you stay there and blow up there? That's because you were attracted to what was already here. Already here. This would your remarks about foundational Black Americans would lead me to ask the question of, do you have any respect for Remy? As far as I could tell, Remy is a foundational Black American. She was born right here. Her parents right here. And even if she doesn't come to you and say, You know, I'm good. I know you say the N-word a lot. This don't bother me. Even if she said that and that's how she felt, you as a man should be able to be like, you know what, I understand, but you know, out of respect for you and people that look like you, I'm not gonna say it because too many people that look like you are offended. And I don't, you know, your feelings may change. I want to get on top of doing the right thing as quickly as possible. No, you double down and committed to you gonna keep saying it. Shit like that, shit like that, shit like that. I don't know if Remy feels away, but it would be embarrassing for someone who felt that way about foundational Black Americans to consider that they love me and not consider that I might fall under that group. There's some other things I definitely want to make sure I mention with respect to this conversation. I want to get into some of why I think Fat Joe is comfortable in our culture. Fat Joe is giving the energy that he's a legend in hip hop. Now, having put out an album or having put out a song that was popular 20, 25 years ago, let's be clear, does not make you a legend. And let's also not forget who initially got the pass to the Cookout. That would be Big Pun. Big Pun got a pass to come to the Cookout, and Fat Joe was his plus one. You are not why we know who Remy Ma is. Big Pun is why we know who Remy Ma is. Big Pun was the legend. He was the one that was coming up in the legendary conversation. He's the reason we started paying attention to this Puerto Rican flow with the accent in it that lets you know I'm rapping, but I'm still, you know, I still have my ethnicity in my tone. It was Big Pun. It wasn't Fat Joe. So you are a plus one at the Cookout. And you done got up on the table and pulled your backside out. Like, here's my behind. Let me show it. Fat Joe, you are a plus one at the Cookout, and you have done all but admitted to trying to embarrass the person that was initially invited. You done came to the Cookout calling people niggas, and you ain't gonna stop saying it. Shit like that, shit like that, shit like that. And it's like, we was only fucking with you because of Pun. Do he know you acting like this? Have you ever asked that man's spirit to give you the proper guidance to be able to navigate a legacy such as his so that you don't tarnish it with your behavior and you can carry out what maybe he tried to come into the game to do? Because that's why you here, because of him. You think you a part of the hip hop discussion because of Lean Back? You know, I would think that you would have at least been honest about what it was like to engage Black people to the point of being 50% contributory to one of their original expressions. There were Puerto Rican people, just people who were not Black, period, who were completely shunned from their own families for dealing with Black people. So where was the social climate that would have allowed for a 50% contribution to the word vocalization of hip hop? When was you doing it? At night when your families was sleeping, they couldn't see you? Where was the social climate that provided for that to happen. Because while hip hop may have been a bridge to allow those two ethnicities to communicate, it definitely wasn't on a level that was reflected in the lyricism that became rap. Let's be clear. It's a very interesting take, Fat Joe. I can't expect someone who has been called out for telling untruths in the past. Fat Joe has been called out for claiming a certain relationship with Biggie or Notorious Big, where they had an album ready to put out and they used to hang every day, and nobody can find evidence of such a relationship, not a picture, not a communication, nothing. So people have already suggested that you have a history of not telling truthful stories. And while you're not telling these truthful stories, it's hard to believe that you truly believe that there was a 50% Puerto Rican contribution to rap, the hip hop, the piece of hip hop that is rap. I don't believe you believe that. I think you know what the conditions were for people who dealt with Black people back then, and I don't think that it makes sense for something like that to only be mentioned now. You seem to be the only person that feels this way and has this recollection. We don't see your big homies coming out from first generation hip hop with this claim. We don't see your current peers supporting this. And I would think that people in your bloodline, your Puerto Rican bloodline, would be embarrassed by you trying so hard to fit into this piece of foundational Black American culture. They should be embarrassed. You might want to call up some of your elders, make sure they ain't shunned you, because they still feel like we don't play that. You might want to check, because you might be embarrassing them right now and not realize it. I know if one of my relatives came in trying to suggest that, they had 50% contribution to Puerto Rican music culture because their uncle carried bongos for a famous music group in Puerto Rico, y'all would be all over my head. Y'all would cut off Black people overnight. So you have to be able to respect the insult that carrying records is when it comes to being a pioneer. Do you know what Grandmaster Flash did? If you understand, do you seriously think that if your brother wasn't available to carry his records, that rap would have just come to a halt? You don't think he would have found somebody to carry those records? I'm disappointed in you, Fat Joe. I'm disappointed in you. And I think what people need to understand is nobody is trying to say that, there can't be good Puerto Rican rappers. There can't be good contributions to rap made by other ethnicities. I think people such as the Beastie Boys, such as Lean Back and Fat Joe, Terror Squad. I'm going to call them the Lean Backs. People like the Terror Squad, they can make music that we will bop to. I don't think that we're trying to say that they can't, but the reason why it's dangerous to allow the rhetoric that Fat Joe is going on with to continue is because the stories are written by the winners. And if for some unforeseen circumstance, Fat Joe becomes a winner in this discussion, he is not going to tell the correct story of hip hop. He's going to insert himself and his ideologies into hip hop in a story that suggests his 50 contribution is correct. when it isn't. So he can't come into the game, into the cookout, thinking he's at the family reunion, waiting until there's nobody standing but him to get his opportunity to tell his narrative, because he gonna tell a lie. He's doing it now, and if he's allowed to, he'll continue. I think that the fact that he suggested Tariq Nasheed was the head or the leader of the FBAs, like like this is YBI or something, like it's a gang, you know what I'm saying? The fact that he would suggest that Tariq Nasheed is a leader instead of just a participant and a brother of that bloodline, that foundational Black American bloodline, to not be concerned enough to have your facts together and to suggest that he's broke, that was laughable. That was laughable. I will admit Tariq Nasheed is arrogant, and he is so arrogant with his research and truth that he is top tier petty. And I can remember how Tariq Nasheed advised people, before you come for him, understand that he is petty with money. So, Fat Joe, I'm willing to bet that there's probably 5 full-length memes on you already on his platform. I'm pretty sure he's roasting you on his platform in movie form. Like you are definitely getting roasted in 4K over there. I haven't checked, but I'm just saying I'm willing to bet that he's definitely cooking you. It is unfortunate that you didn't care enough to do the research, and it just confirms that you aren't interested in the truth. You're interested in trying to validate your own opinion, however incorrect it is. You're more impressed with what you have to say than the truth. You think that what you believe and your emotions behind it mean more than the actual facts that are in complete availability about what you think when it comes to hip hop and its contributions. From what I understand, Tariq Nasheed has a documentary out called Mic Check. Forgive me if it's wrong. I'm not trying to misquote that man's documentary. I know he put some hard work into it, and I'm gonna check it out as soon as I can. But Tariq Nasheed did a deep dive on the subject of foundational contributors to hip hop. And, I don't know if that offended you, but, you think your money long, put out your own documentary. Tariq Nasheed said, I'm not going to get online. I'm not going live. Okay, I'm not finna go. I'm not going live. I'm not doing a short. I'm not chopping up no reels. I got a documentary for you. And if you want my documentary records, you could check out Hidden Colors, volumes 1 through 3. 1 through 3. They ain't no slouch. Okay, so I just wish Fat Joe would have did his research so he didn't look and sound so ignorant. It's a very heartbreaking dynamic, but I do want people to understand this. For me, Fat Joe is not a representation of all Puerto Ricans who love hip hop. He's not. I don't let him represent y'all. However, I will ask y'all who understand what I'm saying to get your mans. Go pull his coattail and be like, listen, Joe, let me talk to you. Because Big Pun done got us in here on this platform to be able to do this in harmony, and you about to F it all up. Go talk to your mans, okay? Now, before I give my last comments, I do have a chat going right now, and y'all know I will definitely bring my chat in to have some contribution to the conversation. So let's see what's going on in the chat. 21XL is in the house. Fat Joe has got his the fat has got to his brain. That's what 2-1 said. I'm crying. Um, Brent W is in the house. Thank you for joining us, Brent. Um, it said here, Philip says, but Fat Joe got all upset when that white comedian said that Puerto Rico was a big trash pile floating in the ocean. Oh wow. Now I didn't hear about that. I heard something about the comedian saying what he said. I didn't know that Fat Joe had a reaction to that. Wayne Almighty is in the house. He said, get him. Wayne, I want you guys to go check out Wayne's page. Wayne is constantly cranking out music. I think Wayne put out 17 albums since the last time I went live. So, y'all better catch up. LeBron said FBA is a relatively new term. There are still a lot of people that know about it. And I agree. Yes, FBA is a relatively new term. And I think that in order to make sure that the term holds its integrity, that the term is used with respect, that it is up to us to make sure that when people like Fat Joe get out here with incorrect information, spreading the incorrect narrative about what an FBA is, that it's our responsibility and duty to make sure we correct that narrative. I'm trying to do my part to let everyone who isn't familiar with FBA as a term, even if you don't follow every single thing that the FBA platforms want to put out, even if you don't follow everything, at least be respectful so that you understand you don't want to go out here trying to offend anybody. But the FBA is Foundational Black American. It's not the Foundational Black Authority or the Foundational Black Association. It's not like the NAACP. It's not like the NOI. It is a classification of people who can identify through bloodline and race who they are with respect to the land that they are on. You go to Australia, you find Australians. You go to China, you find the Chinese. When you come to America, you should be able to find Foundational Black Americans. So we see you, LaRon. Thank you for your contribution and coming over to hang out with us on Nacho Sundays on this here Saturday. Big Slim said, don't say white people, say white Jews. Tell the truth. They funded hip hop. You know what? That's why I kind of mentioned Rick Rubin and the Beastie Boys. I could see them having more of a claim to a percentage of hip hop than anything I would see Puerto Rican Americans have contributed. So I just think that the nerve of Fat Joe to jump over all those good Jewish people to claim what he's claiming is just incredibly ridiculous to me. 21XL said, not the bongo. Flea Sport, thank you for hanging out with us on Nacho Sundays on this here Saturday. He said he bugged out. He carried the crates though. Yeah, that's what we're trying to understand. What importance should that have for us? Like, I don't see anybody, no crate carriers who are getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, So I'm just trying to understand the significance we're supposed to assign to that. Why bring that up? What are you saying? Who was the janitor? Should we include them too? Like, who took out his trash? So, make it make sense. Let's see. We have Righteous Indignation. At least Shakira and Jennifer Lopez said in separate interviews that all music is African. I know what you're trying to say there. And yes, they did admit it. But again, Jennifer Lopez is trying to charge Beyonce level prices for her concerts. And she's lip syncing. She can't sing at all. She's not really giving credit to the people who actually helped her singing career that could be considered foundational Black Americans, like Ashanti, with that real strong Black name, Ashanti. But she's not giving her credit. She thinks that we want to come and pay her Beyonce prices to listen to her sound like Ashanti. So, I'm just trying to understand. But yes, we are glad that at least somebody is admitting it. Sugar Shack. I know that the term is not based on a group, but is a true Tariq Nasheed trademark term. There are some on the internet using the hashtags that are spewing some ignorant statements. You know, I like somebody else said earlier, yes, foundational Black Americans or FBA is a new term. And I can understand some people having confusion about what that actually means. And I'll even extend some grace to see why I can see why Fat Joe thought it may have been an organization. But I think the irresponsibility comes in where you are going to go do a show like Math Hoffa's platform, where you're going to be able to reach a lot of people. And because you're going to be able to reach a lot of people, you don't do the proper research before you get onto a platform and say what you said as disrespectfully as you said it, and not have the proper information about who you were talking about. It just shows no accountability, and it shows a high level of disrespect where you don't even realize why it's insulting. And then for people who are trying to tell you why it's insulting, I haven't seen an I apologize yet video from Fat Joe. Not one. So it's just interesting to me. I wish he would come to some mature intellectual expression where he can say, listen, I didn't understand who the organization was, or what I thought was an organization. I didn't realize this is a class of people who identify this way through bloodline and foundation. That wasn't my intention to disrespect them. I thought this was just a small group of people that, you know, was internet gangsters. I could see that. But Joe ain't been seen saying nothing, you know, and I'm fully expecting a double down. So let's see, who else do we have in here? Sensei FBA Marv says FBA all day. And I am happy to see my chat is engaging each other to have some more healthy conversation about the FBA identification and what that actually means to the people who use it or identify with it. I'm glad to see that we can have some healthy discussion over here. And I'm glad that the only narrative out there about this group is not what Fat Joe has to say. And it's like oh, wow. There's a lot of conversation in here. A lot of people have joined the chat. Volume 2 Reloaded is in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Rio is in the chat. Rio said, why would he apologize? From his perspective, he was talking to Tariq and those FBAs who call him Tether. He should apologize because, again, Tariq Nasheed is not the leader. However, he is the person who popularized the term and the movement. Because he may have offended people he didn't intend to offend, he should at least be respectful of that. So that's why he should apologize. And while we're here talking about people who have just a little bit too much comfort at the cookout, Busta Rhymes said that Black Americans have no culture. And, you know, he's just over here to exploit what he thinks is basically a check. He's acting like, you know, he believes that Jamaicans have contributed an equal amount to hip hop. He's taking the Fat Joe approach to hip hop that he believes comes from a Jamaican standpoint. He said some very hurtful things about Black Americans, period. And I'm over it. I have purged all Busta Rhymes from my playlist until I get an apology or some kind of correction that lets me know he respects what Black Americans have been able to do for his career, because he didn't do what he did in Jamaica no more than Fat Joe did what he did in Puerto Rico. So it's different. You know, I'm very surprised about Busta. I'm looking over here at my chat. I see Mr. Great has joined us. And he said Fat Joe was definitely out of pocket. Yeah, I'm not letting up on that. Fat Joe was definitely out of pocket, and it should have been something that I'm not sure, is Math Hoffa foundational Black, American? Because I would have thought he would have said something, but it's just the comfort level where Joe doesn't have the compass inside himself to say, let me check myself before I just go out here talking about people. He didn't have that inside tingle to pause him. He just let some stuff fly out of his mouth because he felt his opinion and emotion was enough for him to have all the facts necessary, and thought that calling that group of people broke would suffice. It's the contradictions for me, because those same broke people are the ones you used for clout when you want to talk about how your grandmamas was in the projects. I got 2 Black grandmamas, okay? I got 2 Black parents. So I don't understand. I don't get to pick and choose, when I want to bring in my Black side. I don't get to, use it sometimes. I can't pick something else, when people ask me, on paperwork. So in order to be able to separate from suggesting that the only reason people who look like me exist on this land is if their ancestors were brought here from Africa, and there are quite a few Americans on this land who were already here before anybody showed up from Africa, the disrespect is unreal. Like, yeah, you need to apologize. You need to understand that there is a level of respect that is necessary for anybody who doesn't identify with you, that you need to be aware of. When in Rome, Fat Joe. But you let that fat go to your brain. Somebody said that earlier. You let that fat go to your brain, and now you just think you can say anything, and you about to get put out the cookout. Rio said, Black Americans have lots of culture. Buster is wrong on that one, and I'm Jamaican lineage. Well, thank you for giving us that opinion, Rio. I appreciate you saying that. It's necessary, because people think that Busta Rhymes might be the representative for all things Jamaican hip hop. And what we need to do as an intellectual social community is understand that he's not the representative to say what's on all Jamaican minds when it comes to hip hop. So Rio, we thank you for your contribution and putting that out there. It's very important that your voice and others like you are heard, in addition to the large voice of a Busta Rhymes. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I don't want to mess this up. Vlad banned me. That's probably a good thing, Vlad banned me, says Judah, stand up. It's biblical. If you know, you know. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand totally what you mean by that. And we fight spiritual battles in high places, and it matters who our representation is. It very much matters. So yes, I understand what you're talking about. Let's see. Habra, I think that might be what he's saying, is in our chat. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Gray is definitely keeping the conversation going in our chat. I appreciate this. I didn't know it was going to be this much discussion generated around this topic, but I'm so glad you guys decided to join me, and I'm glad I can provide a platform for this discussion to happen. Your boy Rue is in the chat. He said math is Bejan. I don't want to mess that up. I'm not sure what that is, but I think that was an effort to let me know that Math Hoffa is not necessarily a foundational Black American. And thank you for that information, Rue. We appreciate that. That would definitely, okay, Miss Mr. Gray said, Math Hoffa's father is Caribbean from Barbados. Okay, so what we have to understand is that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. You know, there are people who might have our same skin color. They may be copper colored, you know, from all ends of copper, from light to dark. You know, there may be copper colored people who share our skin tone, but they don't necessarily share our ideals nor experience. And you know, if you have people who don't necessarily identify like that, it makes it a lot easier for people like Fat Joe to go on those types of platforms and say things without fear of restriction, because they know they're talking to another foreigner and they know that they have that in common with the foreigner. So they don't have to restrict their conversation because they have that bridge to communicate on. So again, we have to be careful who we allow in, because if they have an opportunity to tell the story, they are not going to tell it in accordance with what actually happened, but in a way that paints a narrative that gives them more credit than what they may deserve. So thank you for that information, your boy Rue and Mr. Gray. I'm glad y'all were able to provide that. Volume 2 Reloaded is in the chat. Definitely him versus everybody, or I don't want to misquote anybody. I don't know if that's a him or her, but you know, they are definitely feeling like Fat Joe didn't do anything wrong. He said Fat Joe is hip hop. And, you know, normally when I would see an agitator like that in the chat, I would ban them, but I'm not seeing anything too disrespectful. So I'm going to let that conversation go ahead. Maybe we can generate some other healthy conclusions by allowing that kind of adversarial commenter to stick around. So, you know, although you might not agree with everybody in the chat, volume 2, we do definitely appreciate you hanging out with us and keeping the discussion going. Average the Ancestors, I hope I'm saying that right, said, one love family, one love to you. Tony T, hey Fibonacci Brown, hey Tony T. Thank you for joining us on this here Saturday. We definitely appreciate you spending time with us today. Okay, Wavy McFly. Why does everybody have smoke for Fat Joe? Who doesn't own a record label or control anything, but nobody lays a glove on Lucian Grange or any of the Jews that actually own and run the labels? I get what you're trying to do there, Wavy. That is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. And I even absolutely understand why you're bringing it up in this conversation. But because I think that that deserves some separate commentary that isn't wrapped up in what we're talking about with Fat Joe, because it's just that deep, I'm going to respectfully not bring that in too much into this conversation. But you definitely have a point, because yes, anybody who is contributing to the detriment of hip hop should be brought up in a saving hip hop conversation, as far as who we need to address and who we need to make sure we let them know we're aware of what you're doing in our culture. So you have a point there, Wavy. I'm not going to dismiss you like that. You definitely bringing up some. I see what you did there. Ferrari Red is in the house. Thank you for joining us. Ferrari Red is saying peace, peace. How you doing? Philip Hargrave. When that white comedian said that Puerto Rico was a trash pile floating in the ocean, Fat Joe got all upset, as he should have. And if Fat Joe got upset about that comedian saying that about Puerto Rican people, he should definitely be understanding of why Black foundational Americans are saying what they saying to him. So having had the experience, or having had an experience where he can see a correlation or a parallel, he should even be more so aware of what is falling out of his mouth. Like, come on, Fat Joe, you still in a territory of where you might get a little grace. There are people who are still hopeful that you'll get it, so that you can show the respect necessary for someone like you in the culture. You know, but if you're going to continue to just ride this wave, you know, of doubling down on things that people have told you are hurtful when it comes to our community, you're going to ride yourself right out of hip hop. People going to cancel you. Let's see. Okay, volume 2 said I'm Moreno, yeah, but Boricua. Please don't make me because if I'm saying it wrong, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't know what that means. I don't know what a Moreno is. If you can enlighten us, we're definitely here for it. 2-1 said Fat Joe is ass. Give me a Fat Joe quotable. I think all we got is lean back. Lean back. That's the only one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's another one, but I think that's all we got. Volume said, I got Puerto Rican family. That skin is black. Exactly. And skin folk don't mean kinfolk. If you sit me and a Puerto Rican in the same room who we share a skin color, but they don't speak English and I don't speak Spanish, you're going to see the differences right away. And I know I'm not the darkest sister in the black folks, but, it is what it is. You know what? I want to also tell you guys, I appreciate you talking about this in a healthy way. My chat is lit right now, okay? Because a lot of times I'm going to tell you, I go to chats and I see people who they have these disrespectful conversations when it comes to difficult topics like this one, especially on a sensitivity level as race. And they just, it quickly goes left. I want to salute my chat for being able to have this healthy discussion here on my platform. This means a lot. I really enjoy a high level of intellectual exercise in discussions like this. It shows that we can communicate. It shows that we are able to have discussions where we're trying to understand and not just trying to talk to be talking. Like, I'm proud of y'all. You're doing a fantastic job. 5/5 says salute to everyone in the chat. Yes, 5/5. Thank you. And salute to everyone is in the chat. I don't know if you guys can like this. I haven't been on, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I ain't been on the StreamYard in a long time. And there are some things that have changed. And I don't even know if I'm working this correctly, but if you can share or like the video, please do so. I don't even think I said that the whole time I've been talking, but if that's something you could do, please go ahead and like and share. I would love for you guys to be able to have this discussion continue once the live is over. Let's see. Habra says, I'm of Louisiana Creole lineage, and many times when I've told this to Caribbean people and they hear my accent, they feel comfortable to badmouth Black Americans. Skin folk ain't kinfolk. Skin folk ain't kinfolk all the time. I appreciate you being able to share that with us. Again, those voices are necessary. Forgive me, y'all. I'm up here chewing up my lip gloss. 5/5 said, the salute to you, Fibonacci. Salute to you, 5/5. I appreciate you hanging out with us. 5/5 said, hit that like button. 2-1 said, Fat Joe ain't got no bars. Man, you guys, I'm so proud of y'all. I don't see no disrespect in the chat. Okay, average the ancestors. I'm gonna freshen up my lip gloss, y'all, but I'm gonna still keep going through the chat. Average the ancestors said he never should have been at the cookout. And my lip gloss popping, y'all. And to an extent, again, we forget why we even know a Fat Joe in the first place. And that's because Big Pun got an invitation to the cookout and Fat Joe was the +1. So, he tried to vouch for his mans, and it's really, really sad to see what Fat Joe is doing with that +1 invite he got from Big Pun. So I see what you're saying, Average. I can appreciate that comment. I see why you're saying it. Why are New York Black Americans not checking Fat Joe? That's crazy. That's from Postmaster Sergeant. And, that's a good question, but I will say this, because there are certain narratives being put out there very well may be some New York Black Americans checking Fat Joe. I think Lord Jamar is in New York. So I think that is happening. It just might not get the recognition that other narratives are getting. So I understand your point. That's a good point. I'm so sexy said, "You're beautiful, sis." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This is I'm loving the back and forth. Mr. Great said it's pronounced Beijing. Okay, so thank you for the correction because I hear people but they butcher Fibonacci all the time, So if there's a way that you can get in there to correct me when I'm saying it incorrectly, I appreciate the correction. Please help us out. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this, y'all. Plenty of healthy conversation. PupX13, there's a distinction between Black Americans and FBAs, correct? So it definitely depends on how you identify, but Black Americans, people who have lineage that goes into the land here in the Americas and not lineage brought over by the transatlantic slave trade, people who identify as already being here, they could be Black Americans, but that's who foundational Black Americans say they are. So you could identify as African American and be a foundational Black American. You just haven't done the research or the history to find your lineage originating on this land. So that it's a new term, and it's a term that is growing in identification for people who are suggesting that, hey, I'm not an African American. I am an ancient American from this land. I was already here. My bloodline is already here. When I research all my ancestors and past loved ones, everyone goes here. When I look up, I hear my ancestors saying, we got Indian in our family. Nobody ever mentioned being an African prior to Jesse Jackson and me being in elementary school and being told so. So far as I know, there one can be the other, but the other can't be the one. So I hope I'm explaining that correctly. If not, there's a hit hashtag FBA. I'm sure you can get plenty of more specific information than what I'm giving right here. Let's see. Y'all, this is fantastic. Good evening. If you don't mind me asking, what is your lineage? So this is from Partner Jones US. I identify as a foundational Black American and ancient American. My bloodlines for one part of my family has been researched back to 1799. There's other lineage where we have what I consider ancient American, or what some of you guys might consider Native American, even though that's a misnomer, but the lineage goes back there. So Black, copper American. I know y'all see these little curls on the side of my head. This is jail. This is not this I'm not of non-Black descent. So there's that. Righteous indignation. F his apology. That's our problem, forgiving and loving everybody. So it's not that we are. Let me explain that apologizing doesn't mean we have to forgive. When you look up the etymology of an apology, it's acknowledging that you were wrong. We don't have to forgive that behavior. We need that back. You took something from us. We need you to give something back. And it can be over after that. So no, we're not trying to leave the gate open for others to come through by way of forgiveness. I think when people think about forgiveness and they think about, what they believe is the religious thing to do, whether you're a Christian or whatever you decide to identify as religiously, I think people think, well, Jesus would have forgave. And, it's Jesus turned the other cheek. I think people forget about marketplace Jesus. Jesus saw people acting up in his father's house and he went ham. He turned over tables. He flipped over everything in the marketplace, talking about not in my daddy's house. So we need to stop acting like, he was walking around, home, forgive everyone. And nah, Jesus came in there stomping with his hands on his hips, talking about who got weapons of mass destruction. Not in my daddy's house. And he went ham. So I identify with that. You don't let people just come into your daddy's house and be disrespectful. And when they start being disrespectful to the point where they're going to get so comfortable as they're going to gamble and sell things in your father's house and not show the necessary respect, yes, you turn the tables over. So that might be what Fat Joe is experiencing. He might be experiencing people saying, not in my daddy's house. You're not going to come over here and sell and make money off of us and get over on us supporting you just to turn around and act like you a creator of it. When you're not. To think that you could come over here and call us broken niggas and it's okay. It's not. Not in my father's house. Anywho, let's go. Let's continue with our chat. But yes, I appreciate that contribution, Righteous Indignation. I understand why you're saying that. Robert Rivera says Fat Joe made millions. Yes, he did, off of foundational Black Americans. And for him to be disrespectful and call them broke, the nerve. Let's see. I'm so sexy, said Fat Joe needs Jesus. He needs somebody. He needs somebody to have this conversation with so that he is not misled into thinking that he is correct. It's an embarrassment to Remy Ma. It's an embarrassment to himself. It's an embarrassment to other Puerto Ricans who look to him to have a better guidance than what he's offering on his platforms right now with that type of conversation. Let's see. I'm in here. What's really good? Make me an admin. This is what truly Zambian. Zambian is saying. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. This conversation I think needed to be had. It was necessary. I just couldn't hold the commentary back anymore. And Fat Joe, I want you to get it together. You know, you're gonna mess it up for other people we consider guests at the cookout. You know, we don't want to be the ones who have to make an example out of you. We want you to be able to have the moral compass to check yourself so we don't have to. And when we see that your moral compass is turned off when it comes to checking yourself, it's time that we step up and check you. And with that being said, I want to thank everyone who is pointing out this behavior in Fat Joe, pointing out this behavior in Busta Rhymes. Thank you guys for speaking up. Too many times we have let the BS slide. Too many times we have let people get away with things that they should have been checked for. Too many times we let people put out narratives about us that is not a correct narrative. And we don't change it. We let them say what they gonna say. We let them do whatever. We let people who are not us play in our face. I remember there was a reality star, Evelyn Lozada or something. She tried to play in our face, calling herself a Afro-American, Afro-Latina. I've never seen this woman's Afro. And she was like, well, you know, all Latinas are really Black anyway. Ask your grandmama. That ain't what she said. I think in order to identify as an Afro-Latina, you have to have an Afro, at least. So it's a problem when you don't have boundaries that other cultures respect. They will run right up to the where the line should be and blur it. They'll try to make it difficult for you to distinguish one from the other. And if you don't have people who will step up and say, no, here's a hard line in the sand. And this is where the cookout ends and the family reunion begins. When you don't have that distinction and you don't have those boundaries, you have to make sure you are giving people something to respect. So those of you who have stood up and said, nah, Fat Joe, we're not about to let you play in our face. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to say something. Thank you for being brave enough to put that line in the sand and make sure people understand you're going to have to show a level of respect if you're going to be in this house of hip hop. You don't get to maximize yourself in this culture and then crap on it. after you get what you need out of it. Because if you get sick of us, guess what? You can go chill in Puerto Rico with all the funds you got from us. We still gonna be here trying to save what we consider our culture. So I appreciate people who are taking our voices and placing them in the algorithm to say we have boundaries. We have boundaries that should be respected. Roberto, I keep saying Roberto. Robert Rivera said, no offense, you look really Puerto Rican. You know, I have been accused of looking Puerto Rican, Mexican. I've even heard Arab. You know, I'm in Detroit, been here all my life. And we have a lot of gas stations that have Arabic owners. And, you know, depending on how I wear this hair, honey, you know, I could look, they look very racially ambiguous. So that's not the first time I heard that, Robert. Let's see. We've got a lot of people who are joining the conversation. Y'all, hold on. We got 120 people in that are watching this live right now. Thank all of you for hanging out with me this Saturday and having this discussion. I appreciate this. You guys are, it's showing me that you guys are really interested in being able to get a narrative going that has some integrity to it. And I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. Mr. Great. Okay, Mr. Great is answering a question for me. He said it's pronounced in Spanish, marrano, and it means black. So the reason that I asked that question is because Cuban Link, who is a rapper from the late 90s, early 2000s, I'm around that era, said that Fat Joe made the statement that these Morenos have had their time in hip hop and it's our time now. So he was trying to explain that it didn't mean anything negative, like it wasn't like saying the N-word or anything, but it does mean, you know, it's specific to Black people. So according to him, Fat Joe is of a mind that, you know, we've done all we're gonna do as Black people in the name of hip hop, and it's time for Puerto Ricans to take over. He forgot he was at the cookout. He thought he was at the family reunion. He thought he was at the table of elders that can make decisions on the direction of the culture, and he thought that his contribution meant he had a voice to make that call. He thought he was at the family reunion. This is why the narrative is important. This is exactly why. Let's see. Aaron Anthony is in the chat. Math Magic is in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Math Magic, Black people own nothing. Black people own no hip hop distributors or anything. This is just pure nonsense. And I think that you are correct in a sense, because there is a partnership with the Jewish community that has a lot to do with why we're even aware of something called hip hop. And because Black people are one half of that industry, and when I say one half of that industry, there's a half that produces it and there's a half that consumes it. And we are definitely on the consumer end. However, once we realize that there is a boundary that needs to be drawn, once we realize there is a line that needs to be respected, if Black people decide that today is the day, and that, you know what, today I got time, because if they make that decision today, then today is the day. And hopefully that feeling and effort carries over into boundaries that will let other cultures know you're going to respect this one. So, you know, we understand you pointing that out, Math Magic, but it isn't going to stop any of the contributory efforts to people who believe there's a boundary that needs to be created or has been crossed with respect to this culture. Identifying what that, you know, Black people don't own anything by way of distribution or whatever, that's not going to stop anything. But we see you pointing it out. Let's see. C18 or C18H10. I'm not certain what all of that is, but thank you for joining us. Fat Joe is a racist devil and white supremacist cosplaying as FBA hip hop artist. That's an interesting take. I don't know if he would identify as an FBA anything considering the circumstances, but I definitely see why you said that. And yeah, you know, Fat Joe, you look like foundational Black Americans. You're trying to dress like them, rap like them, talk like them. Your slang is like them, and yet you think they're all broke. So it's different, you seem to like the culture when it fits you, when it makes you money, and then as soon as somebody has something to say about keeping you correct, you decide you want to call them broken niggas, and it's just not cool. Y'all are definitely keeping the chat lit. I didn't think I was going to be over here this long going through the chat, but I appreciate you guys having this intellectual conversation. What I was saying was, thank you guys on all platforms who have decided to speak up and say, no, Fat Joe, no more. You're not going to continue to do this to us. You're not going to continue to think that your invitation to the cookout allows you to disrespect the family. You're not going to do that. So for those of you who are using your platforms and your voices to bring some attention to this narrative so it can be corrected, thank you. Thank you. And I also want to point out that for those of us on different platforms who don't always agree with each other, I'm so glad we can come together on this accord to say, nah, let me help you draw this boundary. Let me help you make sure this boundary is there, because if we all don't say, hold up, he don't run wild. You give him an inch and he's gonna make a whole shroud of Jesus with it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thankful that you guys have taken up the call to correct the narrative. That means a lot. Victor Mack, definitely just sub to your channel. Glad your content just popped up on the algorithm. Can we give a round of applause for the algorithm? Thank you, Victor Mack. I'm glad I'm being added to some algorithms. That definitely helps the channel, and subbing to the channel. Please do what Victor did and get your subs in. Sub to the Fibonacci Brown channel. Make sure that you share and like where appropriate. We appreciate that. So thank you, Victor Mack. Ness NP is in the chat, and Ness said, I just stumbled on what is the discussion. I don't want to give my opinion out of context. Okay, so Ness, we're talking about Fat Joe. Fat Joe said some concerning things about foundational Black Americans on the Math Hoffa show, and he has been called into the hot seat in recent commentary because he called foundational Black Americans broke niggas. And he suggested that it was an organization, the Foundational Black Authority, and his misunderstanding of what an FBA is has caused plenty of people to have quite the commentary on his disrespect of such by calling them broke and niggas and so on. So hopefully you'll be able to go back and check out the whole discussion on the live. Again, I'm trying to navigate this whole thing on the StreamYard. It's been a minute, y'all, so I'm hoping this is going to be able to record and be there for you guys to go back and take a look. Old Risha Creole 504, thank you for joining us. Peace, your live popped up in my feed. Love the content. Tuned in from New Orleans. Thank you, New Orleans. That's coming into the commentary. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us on this Saturday. I'm loving the love, y'all. Thank you. Flea Sport, he don't even speak Spanish. He a fraud. Flea Sport said he got the real tea. Let's see. Ray Knowles is in our chat. Panther Jones is in the chat. West Indian Chuck is in the chat. Thank you guys for joining the discussion. Let's see. Brooklyn came in the chat. Beautiful sis. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I'm having a ponytail day, y'all. So I got my gray showing. That's a lot of wisdom on top of that head, y'all. So I appreciate y'all giving me the compliments. It helps. Rocky Rodriguez, racism still alive. Much love to all, though. Racism is still very much alive. It is an awful disease, and it's sad that it can't be monitored through accountability when it comes to individuals. But racism definitely has a lot more tools to be dealt with today than it did in the past, by way of how we handle it mentally and socially. So yes, you are absolutely correct. It hasn't it is very, very much still alive, but there are definitely things we can do about it. Laugh House Production, salute Queen, salute Laugh House. Aaron Anthony is in the chat. Y'all, this is wonderful. I'm so proud of my chat right now. Thank you guys for having a healthy discussion. Thank you guys for being able to talk amongst yourselves in a way that allows for other people to gain perspective. We have people from New Orleans. We have people from New York. We have people from all different kind of walks of experience in the chat having healthy discussion. Algebra is in our chat, a pretendian. Now, I haven't heard that term in a very long time, but you know, when you faking in a culture, pretendian is what they call you. So yes, I get it. Aaron Anthony, we're not forgiving or forgetting. Say about that. Chad C is in the chat, and West Indian Chuck is still in the chat. The is in the chat. Thank you guys for pulling up and participating in the conversation. Christian Lewis is in the chat. Fat Joe knows what he's into. You could tell those must borrow things from people they disdain. There's some more commentary there. I encourage you guys to go back in the chat and check it out, but there's a lot of contribution to this. And you guys, I think we might have to carry this conversation over to a part two, because it clearly you guys want to talk about this. You're having a lot of open discussion, which is really, you know, I thought this was going to be a touchy subject, but I'm seeing people really want to have this discussion. They want to get things off their chest, and clearly it's necessary. You know, maybe we don't have enough platforms who are willing to address this head on, so that people can say what they have to say and express their feelings about this whole conversation from Fat Joe. High Tech Mechanical says, he's in the chat, says Fat Joe broke your heart. I think that's a bit extreme to suggest. Fat Joe didn't break my heart. Fat Joe was incorrect in his narrative. And because I knew there was a correction necessary, I decided to do it instead of waiting on someone else to. So it wasn't a matter of being heartbroken as it was of telling an incorrect story, telling an incorrect narrative, using his large platform and reach to spread misinformation. That's what it was about. It wasn't emotional in the sense of a heartbreak for me. It was necessary in a sense of being factual for me. So thank you for your comment and contribution, hanging out with us on this Saturday. Let's see. You guys are having a really, really good conversation here, and I appreciate it. Mason Classified has joined us. Thank you for joining us in the chat. You know, you guys have so many comments. I can't get to everybody, but I'm trying to give as much acknowledgement as I can, because I really appreciate you guys showing up. This matters. You know, it matters. You guys clearly want to keep talking about this. Wow. So yeah, guys, we might have to continue this conversation in a part two. I want to thank everybody for showing up, and I appreciate everyone wanting to put their contribution into the chat and give their commentary. It matters. And I thank you guys for respecting each other in the chat. I thank you for respecting my channel and this discussion. For all of us at the Fibonacci Brown channel, we thank you for pulling up. Thank you for contributing to the conversation. Thank you to the other platforms who bring this narrative to the attention in order to give balance to the discussion, in order to make sure that the narrative that's out there is not just the narrative provided by Fat Joe and people like him with larger platforms. So if smaller platforms can band together on one accord to say that we will collectively correct this narrative, I'm glad to be a part of that. I believe I'm in good company. And yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you. Y'all have a fantastic evening. And do something wonderful with your Saturday. I'm getting ready to film a video, so I'm excited to get started. I got stuff to do. Yeah, and hopefully when I see you guys next time, I'll have some visuals for you for the Scription album part 3 that we have coming out. Please go check out volume 2. Yes, I rap. I'm not just out here talking about rap stuff because I'm gossiping. I'm talking about it because I'm a part of that culture, have been for nearly 40 years, and it ain't gonna stop now. So I'm gonna go get my creativity on. Y'all have a fantastic evening, and thanks again for hanging out with me. Appreciate y'all.